So, how do you both align your content strategy with your community's core purpose and member needs? So, maybe I'll start with Sarah first, just to be sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having us today. Super excited to be here. For us, it really starts with the purpose of the community. So the Blanchard community's purpose has always been to provide a space for leaders to connect, learn, and grow, as you mentioned in the intro. As an organization, we try to stay close to the conversations that our clients and practitioners and just the industry in general are already having. So that means listening for what clients are asking for, what themes are showing up across the market, what we're seeing in some of the research that we conduct ourselves, and industry research, right? And so then we look for patterns, and that helps us to create content around real challenges that folks are facing and the real needs that we're trying to help solve, right? And so at Blanchard, we want people to help people become better leaders. And so our content has to support that. And I would say it's been an evolution for us over time. The community team that I lead has been becoming more integrated and collaborative with marketing, and that's been really valuable to us because it gives us access to a clear content strategy just across the organization and stronger alignment, and helps us make sure that we're staying rooted in the needs of our actual members. And I do want to pause here for just a second and share something that we call the first pancake at Blanchard. And if you think about when you're making pancakes, the first pancake you make, like, it's too light, it's a little floppy, it didn't cook all the way through, right? And so a lot of us in this community space have probably had a first pancake phase with content strategy. And I'm just trying to say it's not perfect on the first try. Ours wasn't perfect on the first try, and that's okay. It's important that you learn, you listen to your community members, you adjust, and then your next pancake gets a little bit better. So
I love that. I wish we could all see a picture of one another's first pancakes because I'm sure they look great.
right.
Andy, anything from you? How do you align your content strategy?
One thing on the first pancake, you'd be surprised. The first pancake may not look great, but it can taste amazing.
Yes. So true.
So in my case, I look after our partner community at Glide. So freelancers, agencies, consultants who are serving the same customers that we're serving on the product side. And so when we're thinking about where content fits in, it really is us thinking about what needs our customers have and putting that at the forefront, and then thinking about what are the things that we can collaborate on with our partners, with our community members to serve those customers. And we kind of work back from there. So what is it that the customer needs? Because if we're able to help our partners address those pain points, that also means we're lifting up our partners, lifting up those members to help them do better. So through all the different pancakes, all the different types of content that we create and thinking about different things that we can experiment with, it always comes back to that. How are we working together to better serve the customer, and what resources are we making available to our members to achieve that?
I love that. Very good. What are some of the content formats you think are best at different stages of the client's journey or member's journey? Because I see all the time there's onboarding content, or maybe there's certain kind of content that works really well, but maybe it's not serving the purpose of your overall community. So tell me a little bit about some of the content forms you both are using.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I think, like you mentioned, it depends where someone is in their journey. You noted like onboarding, but like early on, I think it's important that we have shorter and more discoverable content because people are just getting to know the community, what it offers, and once they join, it's like a low level of entry, right? That smaller, shorter, discoverable content helps them engage more. Little discussion prompts, events that are relevant, practical resources, and even like member stories. So thinking about your favorite influencer, you're going to trust someone, what someone is saying if you trust them or you have a relationship with them. So when you start to hear from other members of the community, that's really important. But I think as people get more involved, formats that invite people to contribute, to become part of that space are really valuable. So peer conversations, spotlights, panels, like we're having today, Q&As. So it's less about one format is best for your overall community, and it's more about matching the format to what the member needs at that stage. So we have members at all stages throughout their journey in our communities. And so you have to have a wide variety, and you have to be able to point people in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that, Sarah. I think as a community member, I'd probably appreciate having some kind of low-hanging conversations that I could be a part of versus having to jump all the way in initially. So, Andy, anything from you? What are some content formats that work for your community?
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it is your community members are going to be coming from somewhere else, right? And how do you show up in those spaces where those potential community members already are? And that's usually going to be something snackable, bite-sized, maybe a slice of the experience of being in the community. So that's really what you're trying to tease out, is if I see something and I'm scrolling through my feed, does something catch my attention that gives me a little tickle of a FOMO, of fear of missing out? There is something going on within this group, within this community that I want to be a part of. You're giving me just a taste of that, enough so that it piques my interest, makes me curious, so that I'll take that next step to start investigating and seeing, is this community something that's for me? And so if we think about that journey of a community member who goes from that first impression where you're showing up in the feed to, okay, I'm going to go search for this community, or maybe it's a profile. What do I see there? What content is made available to me? And then what's the next step? What content am I seeing there? And just kind of map that out, this journey from first impression all the way through to investigating the community, going to join the community. What's that onboarding experience like, to Sarah's point, when you're coming in as a new member? Map all of that out and just think about what can we test at each one of these stages, and which formats work best for the type of member that we want to reach, but also whatever platform we're reaching them on. So the stuff that's going to resonate, let's say on Instagram versus LinkedIn, it's different. And so you got to dial it in and figure out what works.
Yeah, absolutely. As a global community company, one thing I'm constantly thinking about in content is we talk in metaphors, especially as someone who's from Texas. We get in these metaphors that maybe don't make sense to everyone around the globe. So that accessibility, there's so many things that I think about when it comes to content as well. So love that you mentioned that. Some of our community clients are constantly asking about content calendars. So tell me a little bit about some sustainable content calendar practices you have, especially as people who may have limited resources. I'll start with Sarah on that one.
Yeah. I think the biggest reminder that I have is you cannot do everything, and you do not need to, right? Especially when we're talking about limited resources, limited human power behind your team. The sustainability really comes from focus. And so in the Blanchard community, we focus on a few core themes that we know matter to our audience. So again, going back to that research that's being done, and that alignment with marketing has really helped a ton, because now we have an overall organizational content strategy. So we're not the community over here talking about one thing while the enterprise business is talking about something else to the clients. We all have the same theme, but we are focusing on how we're telling the story in each of those different spaces. So one example I have is, one way we try to get a lot more out of content we already have is, I had a recent event, and it was a great discussion with Ellie Haskins, and she's one of our subject matter experts on self-leadership. And her event was about clearing out the clutter personally and professionally. And after the webinar, I took the transcript and a custom GPT that I've built, and I pulled out some key thoughts that resonated amongst the conversation that was happening during that webinar. I pulled out a couple of key quotes that she shared with us that would really be that little slice that Andy was talking about to draw people in. Crafted the quotes into a social media post, and was able to publish that and draw people in, like, hey, if you missed this great event, come check it out in the community, right? And then in the community, I crafted a forum discussion where we gave like a very high level summary, just enough to get people excited and interested to check out the recording and join the deeper conversation. And so it was one event that led to multiple assets that we were able to then share, highlight, bring people back, and continue the conversation. And so that's one way that we stay consistent without feeling like we're starting from scratch every time. Like there's a process in doing that.
Very nice. Andy?
Yeah, I think that is such an important way to maintain your sanity as a community manager dealing with content. These events that we have as communities, when we bring people together, we have conversation, things are happening. Those are kind of like the heartbeat of a community, right? You bring everyone together, and we can take those moments and repurpose them, remix them, slice and dice, and pull out the excerpts from those moments in so many different ways. And I think that's a big opportunity for community leaders, is to act as a bit of a curator, a facilitator and a curator for these experiences. And then content is like the byproduct, it's the artifact of that moment. So for example, prior to Glide, I worked on community at GoDaddy for a long time. So we're talking millions of customers, hundreds of thousands of community members. The things that we did then are the same things that I'm doing now with Glide, with a community of 500 partners. We are intentionally creating these sorts of events. So for the experts community, we do monthly webinars, and then those are anchors on certain themes or topics that are aligned to what the rest of the organization is doing, so what we're thinking about on the marketing level, to what Sarah was saying. And then how do we slice that up even more so that we have more of these bite-sized pieces of content coming out that feed the strategy in between these webinars and monthly themes. So yeah, it's just a lot of that.
Love that. I just want to maybe rename this webinar to something around snacks. We've talked about pancakes, pizza, snackable content. It's all kind of a food-based content strategy we got going here. But before we go on, I'm seeing in the chat just some questions around your communities and just more context. So could you guys just elaborate on how different maybe, I know Sarah, you've talked about the number of users you've got, where they are, but how different are some of the groups that you're creating in your communities?
Yeah, so again, 9,000 plus members, 120 countries. At its broadest level, the Blanchard community is open for anyone to join that's interested in connecting around leadership. But within our community, we have several subgroups. So like I noted in the chat, we've got a group for ICF certified coaches. We have a gated part of our community that is for our practitioners, our facilitators of our content. Blanchard's a leadership development organization. And then we have regional groups like Blanchard Japan, Blanchard New Zealand, where some of our partners are leading those groups as well. So lots of little groups in there, but also the big broader community where everyone can connect.
Yeah, and on the Glide side, so we have our Glide community, Glide customers, users, tens of thousands, and within that, there's the Glide Experts program that I look after. Think of it as like a VIP, MVP community for our experts. So those are freelancers, agencies, consultants, building solutions for their clients using Glide. We have about 500 active partners in that community. And so the things that we do together, we're really focused on building solutions, working together to serve customers and clients. But it's funny because tactically, regardless of what type of community you're working with, a lot of the strategies and a lot of the execution is the same. People coming together for something that they have in common.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that, Andy, you're coming from maybe some more product-based communities, but I found even community managing for product communities, sometimes they want to talk about product and sometimes they just want to talk about the books they're reading or their latest obsessions over things. So sometimes that's just as important in the community strategy too.
End of the day, we're all people.
Yep, absolutely.
And to that, sometimes the best, most engaging post in a week might be, do you like sunsets or sunrises better, right? Like it's totally a low-hanging fruit that everyone can come around and be like, oh, I like this because, right? So.
Yeah, I get asked all the time, well, what do we do if, they only want to talk about this thing? I'm like, maybe that's something that's keeping people there and keeping them engaged. So maybe that's a once a month conversation they should be having. Love that.
Yeah.
Very good. How do you guys encourage member generated content? So any kind of user generated content in your communities? And
Yeah.
Andy, I'll start this one with you. I'll give Sarah
Perfect.
a break.
I'll take a break.
This is one of like the hardest things in community is how do you get the conversation going, get people to create content. Where I've landed is that it's a lot of facilitation. Folks are so willing to talk and answer questions and share stories and anecdotes, but the friction around going out and staring at the blank canvas is pretty tough. So what we've started doing with some pretty solid success is being very explicit about what we're looking for and then creating those opportunities for them to tell those stories and answer those questions. So on one end, it can be something very scalable and self-serve. It's a form. You're doing surveys, you're doing polls. You could be a one question, one answer prompt of a thread in Slack. On the other end, it's making the time, getting into one-on-ones, getting into roundtables, inviting people into a Zoom call and recording it, and doing the legwork yourself as the community leader to pull the content out of these conversations. I mean, thankfully now because of all the AI tooling available, like I'm a big user of Grain because I can just do a Zoom call, throw that into Grain, and Grain's going to give me a synopsis and a transcript, and I can clip. It's beautiful. So it's more of that, where it's just create the moment and then pull the content out after. Don't put that burden on the member to go and create the content if they're not willing to do it. Some are, they're amazing, but not everybody is up for going in and doing that.
Absolutely. Hivebrite, shameless plug here, but something that's very new to the platform is the ability to suggest content. So if the user's seeing content, there's maybe another post or another event that's similar to that they can join. That's something that's kind of an age-old tactic in community is, all right, we see the post, let's put something in there that the user should do as a next step. And yeah, I love that, Andy. Great. Good. Sarah, what about you? How do you encourage user-generated content?
Well, very similar to Andy. I mean, user-generated content is definitely a hard nut to crack if we're going on the food analogies today. But a lot of people have something valuable to share, and if you pull them into a one-on-one conversation and are curious, they could talk to you for hours, right? But they don't think of themselves as content creators, or the lift looks too big. It looks like, well, I don't have time to write a whole blog post. And it's like, well, that maybe isn't exactly what I'm looking for. So very similar, making it really easy for them to contribute. Instead of just this broad ask, give folks a clear prompt. So recently I sent a short email to just a handful of community members and shared with them that I look at them as kind of an expert in the future of leadership, and I've loved the content I see them sharing on LinkedIn, and I was just wondering if they'd be willing to contribute to a recent forum discussion that I had posted. And I gave them the link to the forum so they could click, comment, and be done, right? It was just very, very simple for them to contribute, and I got a ton of feedback, or comments I should say, from those folks, and then it, of course, generated more people joining the conversation because they saw that it wasn't quite so scary. So that's another way, in addition to what Andy was sharing, that we've done.
Love that. Yeah, the entry or the barrier to entry is sometimes the big problem. And I say to all our clients, the same way it took you maybe a month, 2 months to learn the platform, it's going to take them just as long, if not even longer, because they don't have the onboarding person who's guiding them through and answering all their questions. So simplicity, I think, is so key in member-generated content. So good. Sarah, you touched on inviting someone in, doing some social listening. A constant question I also get is, what's the difference in community and social media? So how do you guys assure that your community strategy and content strategy is different from your social content strategy?
Great question. I look at it as, it's this ecosystem, right? It one feeds the other. For me, they should support one another, but they should not be doing the same job. So earlier we talked about that content that attracts versus content that retains, and I think that's really important to bring up here. Social media is really great for reach and discovery, for letting people see that little sneak peek of what they might intrigue them to join. It helps people to find you, to understand what you are about. For us, for Blanchard, it helps people to be like, oh, I've never heard of Blanchard. So they're definitely not going to go check out the Blanchard community. But if they start seeing things that are of interest to them on our socials, now we've kind of drawn them in. Community then is where they click through finally on one of those LinkedIn posts and they check it out. Community is where we build the depth, the trust, the real connection between people. So it's not about, we don't want those channels to compete. We want to make them work together, where social sparks curiosity, community can turn that into ongoing engagement, belonging, a place where they really feel they can contribute.
That's beautiful. Andy, how do you think about that?
Agreed. I always come back to this definition of community that I use, which is that a community is a persistent, connected group of people who have something in common. And so it's not tied to any specific space or platform, because the same community can come together in many different places in many different forms. Social, to me, to Sarah's point, primarily for discovery, but for existing members, it's also incredibly valuable as a reminder of the community that you're in. If you're flipping through the feed, checking out stories, and there are posts from community leaders, other community members, especially in-person events, it's such a reminder and sort of validation of like, this is why I'm part of this. You like being part of this community because of experiences like this. And it's an opportunity for community members to share and amplify their own participation and engagement within the community. So I think of it as another touch point. It's not as intimate as an intentional community space that you own, so like something that you put up on Hivebrite or any other platform or space, but it still serves a purpose and it's part of the overall community experience.
Love that. We've got some questions from the Q&A, which I love. How often do you revisit or reset your content strategy? Do you guys do that?
All the time.
Constant living strategies.
Okay.
It's always being tweaked.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another question here. What metrics do you track in order to measure content effectiveness? Wonder.
Who wants to take it? You want me to go?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. I think in community it's important, we have to look past just the views or the clicks. These numbers can tell you if people have viewed the content, but not always if it mattered to them, if it enticed them to return. So what I really care more about is if the content is creating conversation, is it bringing people back, so monthly returning users or unique users, and encouraging that participation. I'm asking questions. Are people commenting? Are they joining events? Are they involving themselves deeper within the experience of the community beyond just a comment? Are they coming back and engaging? Are people contributing their own ideas as opposed to just responding to things that we put out there? So to me, the best measure of content effectiveness is, does the community help create that connection, that conversation, and contribution?
Love that. Andy, what about you?
There's like 2 or 3 buckets of metrics that I look at. First one is, you can think of it as like content health. And this is, how is the content performing on whatever platform it exists on. So what you're going to be looking at on social, and even any one of those social platforms, they all have metrics and certain KPIs that matter more to that platform than others. But you can take that same idea, and if you're doing, let's say, an in-person event or a webinar, what are the metrics that indicate that this event, this experience did well? So that's kind of in its own thing, because you always want to make sure that it's doing well in its own right. The next is, how does this impact the community? Are we seeing members engage for the first time? Are they re-engaging? What are they doing after the fact? I pay a lot of attention through different platforms that we use to things like DMs. It's kind of like the hidden metrics where I can't see the content, but I can see the DMs are being sent. I care more about the DMs between members in the community in many ways than I do about public conversations, because what I care about is that stickiness and connection between members. The next bucket after that is what's the impact on the business. So can I draw a line from what we're doing in any one channel to community interaction and stickiness and community health into business impact and business health, because I need to hit that third bucket to get the investment for doing anything. So there's different metrics, and at GoDaddy we were looking at, to be very specific, GoDaddy, I had custom reports set up in Google Analytics that could show basically a funnel from someone who interacts with content from the community versus interacting in the community to conversion. And then with Glide, looking at product usage by community members, like experts, and then interaction within different events and content by our experts.
Love that. Another question from the chat. How do you handle members who are in the community but are rarely posting? Sarah, I'll pass that one to you potentially.
It goes back to that connection. I think community at its core is all about connection. And so being able to reach out to them, have some kind of a nurture stream. Like I have a nurture stream for folks that have not contributed in the last X number of days. And in that, yes, it's a more of a mass email that goes out, but it gives like 3 simple steps. We've missed you, and here's 3 simple things that you can do to engage in the community again. Another way is just reaching out one-on-one and just chatting with folks, asking, hey, is there something that's missing from the community? Because if they're not engaging, it's likely not meeting their needs.
Love that. Andy, anything you do to kind of engage learners, as we call them in the community industry?
Yeah, another framework, me and my frameworks. So I plan out this kind of like drumbeat schedule of what are you doing every year, every quarter, every month, every week, every day. And so for our Glide Experts community, every month we have what we call an expert sync. So it's a webinar, but it's a Zoom webinar, so we'll pull members on and do roundtable conversations and stuff too. Every week-ish, we'll do a digest within the community, kind of a summary of things going on, curating from the community and from related sources outside of the community, just something informative that brings the members back in. And then kind of bi-weekly newsletters, so we're hitting folks where they are, and then all of the social content and just kind of ad hoc engagement with our partners every day. And so setting up this sort of rhythm and cadence, especially when you're hitting different channels in different areas, different members pay attention to different things. Some members are super active monthly when they jump into the webinar, like that is their moment for participating in the community, and then they ghost for a while. But they're still opening emails, they're still checking on things, they're just not participating as actively. But we still want to consider them to be a vital part of the community as well. And so it's serving all of these different learning styles and needs in different ways.
Love it. Food, frameworks, and maybe there'll be another F by the end of our session today. We got a question from Jessie, Andy. She was mentioning, or they were mentioning, the final bucket. Could you clarify that again? What's the number 3 in your analytics from our previous question?
Yeah, it's business impact. And so whatever that looks like, it could business impact, organization impact. What are the metrics that your leadership team cares about? The ones that are kind of fundamental to the organization. How does what you do ladder up to that? That's how you get resources allocated to you and the community.
Oh, I love that. Everyone in the chat, just a quick reminder, please do share as many of the questions you may have. Love them. And Robert, we got your question in the chat, but I just wanted to clarify if you were referring to community or your branded organization site. So let us know in the chat if you can. Another question, which is another common thing we see, how do you say no to content ideas? Let's say if senior leadership has a crazy big dreamer idea and you may not like it. So how do you manage that? I may pass this one to Andy.
It comes in all the time. So community, in my experience, I've always worked within the larger marketing organization. And so there's always ideas. And I like to respond with, maybe not right now, but that doesn't mean no. So there's always a backlog of ideas, things that we can try. Could be topics, could be tactical things. We hold on to them all. You never know when you'll go back to them. But we park it. If it's not a fit for what we're doing right now, just put it in the backlog.
Yeah. Something that's... Oh, Sarah, you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. You know, sometimes it's not a fit also for the broader community, but we could pilot something along those lines in one of our subgroups. And so being able to have that conversation too, like, hey, let's test it here first before we roll it out across everything.
Oh, I love the testing. That's good. Something that I recommend as well is just surveying the users first and then using that as a justification for what the content is going to be. So if the conversation's about the color blue, but an executive wants to talk about the color green, I'll say, well, the color blue is kind of the big thing in the community right now. And then, like you mentioned, Sarah, we can always test the color green for the executive, but blue's kind of the focus we're going by. Robert, thank you so much for sharing context there. So Robert is sharing, he's at MIT. They have close to 200 groups with 20,000 members overall, 10,000 users of members. Each group has their own website. So even though there's overall branding, each group has its own outreach to its target region or a target subject matter audience. So he's wanting to know, I guess, how do you guys decide how much attention is going to that group in order to keep users coming back? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, for us, it's, you know, obviously not to that scale, but in our subgroups, you know, we have group leads. And so while I oversee the broader part of the community, I'm coordinating with the group admins in a group admin group where they can ask questions about engagement and how to best support their content strategy. But at the end of the day, Blanchard New Zealand is responsible for their subgroup and the content, the events they're running. But we meet quarterly and do a QBR where I'm sharing the data behind their group. I'm sharing best practices. I'm sharing what's working in the broader community. They're asking questions, and it's this two-way street of sharing ideas around how to help their group perform at its best. And so we're doing that with each of those subgroups that we have.
Love that. Sarah, I know you run one of the best kind of group admin, user-generated content experiences I've seen. Could you touch on how you train group admins, or do you even train your group admins to be as successful as they are?
Yeah, so to start as a new group admin, or if you want to start a new group, I've got a whole SOP, and it starts with their personal involvement in the community, because I don't think people always realize how much work it is. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'll build the community and people will come. And that sounds great in theory, but it doesn't actually happen like that. And so my boss and I, when we first started all of this, talked about the analogy of a restaurant. So going back to food, if you walk into a restaurant and you look around and it's empty, and there's nobody there, and there's hardly anything on the walls, and the menu is like handwritten on a napkin, you're probably not coming back. And so that's the analogy that I share with folks that are interested in starting a new group. You need to be contributing on a regular basis to the broader community so you know what's involved. And then we go through onboarding specifically. We have our third F. There we go. We go through onboarding of what it looks like to have a successful community. And then there's criteria that they have to meet before they can launch their community. They have to have some content in there. They have to have kind of their beta team that's going to contribute, so it's not just the group lead. They have to have a plan on how they're going to use events or any of the modules that they're setting up in there. And so it's kind of like a 4-month process to get a group lead up and running before they're actually launching it and inviting folks to join their group.
Yeah. There's a quote by Charles Vogel that he's a community expert, but he talks a lot about the importance of creating trust in a community. So if you've not trained someone to lead a community group, then how do you expect the members of that group to feel confident that somebody's running it well? So I am a big fan of that book and I highly recommend it. But yeah, I love that you've really built out a thoughtful process around group moderation. And it looks like Jodine is also asking if you'll share that SOP, Sarah.
Yeah, I can send something your way, Megan, that you can share out with folks.
Absolutely. Andy, tell us a little bit about your groups as well. Are you managing them, or is there a group kind of moderator who does that for you?
Well, the experts community itself is a bit of a subgroup within the broader Glide community. And, going back to that GoDaddy experience, the same thing there, massive global community. And so you end up with this groups model, franchise model, where you need to have some level of delegation and ownership at that group level, and they will have more understanding over what their members need than you will. But it's so important to stay coordinated because you are still all part of that same broader community. So working together to make sure it's all good. So within the experts community, there are certain things that are kind of universal to Glide. And I have amazing colleagues on our education team who look after the broader community, look after what we call Glide University, so training resources, things like that. And we tie that into our content strategy for the partners. And then what I end up doing for the experts group is take a bit of a yes and approach. So there are all the things that we're doing at kind of the base level for the overall community. Now, what are the things that we're doing specific to experts? And now when we think about groups that might be on a regional level, local meetups, in-person user groups, it's the same thing of finding those trusted group leaders, helping set them up for success, but thinking holistically about the entire community and all of these different aspects of it together.
Gotcha. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you guys, because it does come up, is gamification or rewards part of your content strategy as well? I see Andy shaking his head. You're going to go with that one first?
Different people have different motivations.
Yep, exactly.
There's this another framework that I go back to, SAP's model, stuff access, power status. So the idea that for people who are incentivized more by rewards or perks or achievement hunting, you have this, think of it as almost like a pyramid of, you have the kind of material value, transactional stuff at the bottom, the stuff you can get. And then as you participate more, contribute more, you're working your way up, getting into access, exclusive resources, getting into powers and capabilities. Since I work with product communities, usually it's exclusive things within the product that you can only get through community participation, up to status, which is just pure reputation. But it matters a lot to the people within the community. So badging, certifications, credentialization, that sort of thing matters to people who are familiar with that. So I lean on that for folks who are incentivized by that sort of thing. It's helpful.
Sarah, I know you've got a more leadership-based community, so do you feel that they're as intrigued by the swag and the different products as well, or do you find that they're more intrinsically motivated?
I would say they're probably at this point more intrinsically motivated. And, we do some badging, but the badging comes into kind of those leadership milestones, I guess, for lack of a better term. If you have contributed as a founding member to the community, if you can earn which obviously you can't earn that anymore, but you earned the founding member badge. If you are one of our practitioners, you receive the practitioner's badge. If you facilitate a workshop or a session within the community, you earn one of our facilitator badges. So it's showing off, what you've done and how you've contributed to the community space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. Andy, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to put in the chat that framework, the SAPS model, I think you called it.
Yeah, for sure.
If you'll just share that for everyone in the chat. I have one final question, and I'll bring it to Sarah as well. We'll start there. For those managing communities or those with a tiny team, what's one content habit that has saved you most of the time?
I mean, hi, tiny team, got it. I think that the content habit for me is kind of going back to what I shared before about how can you get the most bang for your buck out of each piece of content. And so I know that I think it was Robert had asked something about content. Is that just forum discussions? Is that events? I really look at it, again, all as part of what makes up our community. So starting with the event, and from the event, crafting social posts, crafting forum discussions, crafting different ways to engage with folks, follow up, nurture emails, but all from that one event. And then when we repeat that scalable process, it allows us to utilize AI to partner with it, right? To make it a little faster for a 1-person, 2-person team. And then we can contribute to that ecosystem, getting folks to get excited about the slice of the pie they see coming into the community and continuing to engage there.
Awesome. I love that. Andy, I know we've got you giving that framework, so thank you so much. Sorry,
writing an essay in chat.
All good. I have a question for you as well. Are there any kinds of experts or books that really inspire you as a community manager, or something that everyone should know?
Oh my goodness. I'm looking around. I have piles of books, and I'm trying to think of which one to pull out. There's so much out there. I think I'll have a follow-up for you afterwards that we can share with the group. One thing that's helped me from a community leadership standpoint, it's kind of cheesy, but the book E-Myth Revisited, book on entrepreneurship, but just this idea of shifting your mindset from when you're working in the organization to working on the organization. And when we think about a community, especially as you start scaling and dealing with different groups and things like that, what are the SOPs, what are the systems and processes, the tooling platforms that you can put in place to help with that? So you're building the system that the community runs on. And by doing that, you can spend more time actually engaging and participating in the community as well, because you have those systems in place and you're not just kind of ad hoc doing things on the fly.
Love that. Any final questions or any final thoughts, last thoughts from both of you, Sarah, Andy?
I think for me, at the end of the day, the goal is not just to create content that people see. It's to create content that helps people learn, connect, want to come back, be a part of something. So it's around content that's supporting our community's mission, right? Going all the way back to what I said at the beginning. And for us, it's in helping people become better leaders by connecting, learning, and growing, our little tagline. So.
Love that. Andy, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, it's really just doubling down on what Sarah was saying. When I think about content, I think about education. I think about what resources are we creating for our members. And at the end of the day, content in all its forms is based on what the members need. So if you're ever stuck for what should we create, talk to your members, ask the question, have those one-on-ones and those group calls. They're why we're here in the first place. So let's put things together that support them.
Love it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you for all the good conversation today. Thank you for our 3 Fs. And Sarah, Andy, thank you guys so much for sharing your insights with us. So everybody, please give them all your praise in the chat if you can. To our audience, we do have a recording of this webinar that will come out by email. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit reply on that email and we will respond to you there. Finally, a survey link has been dropped in the chat, and we would love it if you give us any of your feedback regarding today's webinar. So thank you all so much for joining us. Sarah, Andy, thank you as well, and have a good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be.
Thank you.
Thank you all.